at the Coalition, we use the word sexual violence as an umbrella term to encompass any type of unwanted sexual contact or advances. That's a broad term that can include everything from sexual harassment, verbal harassment, to unwanted sexual contact, to sexual exploitation, to rape.
For my entire adult life, I have worked with survivors of sexual assault. As an elected official, I became aware of the situation in the media that we've all become aware of, a very vulnerable woman who was raped and resulted in the birth of a child. And I realized that I can do more than advocacy and education, that as a lawmaker, I can work on this particular issue and make a difference.
Unfortunately, what we know from national data is that people with disabilities experience high rates of sexual abuse, much higher than the general population. So people with disabilities are 3 times more likely to experience sexual violence. If that person has an intellectual disability, that increases to 7 times more likely. If that person is a woman with an intellectual disability, it increases to 12 times more likely.
I was sexually assaulted by a nurse during the hospitalization. And at the time, I kept it very secret until my discharge because I was afraid I would receive malicious care for the rest of my stay. I was in a very vulnerable state. What I've come to recognize is that even someone like me, I'm assertive, I'm communicative, I have 3 black belts. If I can be sexually assaulted, it can happen to anyone.
The best way to prevent future sexual abuse is to, for providers especially, report, over-report. So the opportunity tree, our goal is to be able to offer families resources to be able to start these admittedly awkward conversations at times with their kids or caregivers. I think the sooner providers start that process, the more likely it is to prevent these kind of events from happening in the future.
It requires a couple of things. Vigilance on the part of other caretakers, family members, people around these individuals. Education for people with disabilities to understand what abuse is, that they don't have to accept certain behaviors. Because there can be a long period of grooming that happens before people realize that they are being abused.
The need is obvious, so we're just looking to be a provider to be able to dispense that information. One, to help keep people safe, but also to be able to live more fulfilling lives.
It's a traumatic and difficult experience, but what I want people to know is if you have lived through this yourself, there is help and there is hope. And I encourage you to reach out, tell someone, call an authority, get in touch, because healing begins with disclosure.